I've seen is all of us have had really traumatic things happen. And through the trauma, those have been like the best, most painful lessons, but that's brought out the most growth. There's something to do with this trauma that the phenomena comes, I feel from being around this for a long time. It's just as a reminder, like, keep going, like, you're on the right path, man, keep going. We're eternal beings. You're just in this temporary meat sack. Yes, you're tapping in more into more of your abilities. As you do that, right, my circle of friends now, being into this for years, is smaller than it's ever been, but it's tighter. It's more solid than ever. I don't want 1 million friends. I don't want 1 million followers. I don't care about that stuff. I would just want a couple of people that I know I could depend on, that are there for me, that I could be myself and talk about anything.
Guys, this is amazing. We have Andrew today. He's a gifted psychic medium with a unique background, dedicated firefighter. We're going to get into him being a UFO contactee. He's talked to dead people. He had a job where he did that. This is going to be a really interesting podcast, and so I encourage you guys to stay tuned to this. Andrew, I kind of want to start off, if you don't mind, going into, you could give yourself like a quick introduction or whatever, but when did you first realize that you were a gifted psychic medium?
So, what's up, everyone? I'm here in Melbourne, Australia right now. I'm originally from New York, hence the accent. So people are like, you're in Australia? So that's why I kind of still sound like a New Yorker here. So people might be a little confused. But yes, I'm originally from New York. I never thought I'd end up here in Melbourne, Australia, but life has other plans. And when I first discovered this, when I first realized this, so growing up as a kid, I watched that show on TV called Unsolved Mysteries. I'd watch that with my grandmother. And in 1993, I was 13 years old, watching an episode of Unsolved with Graham. And I looked at her and I said, Graham, when you pass one day, can you come back like that, like they do on TV, and give me a real sign? I don't want to see a feather. I don't want to see a coin on the ground. I have to know that you're okay or whatever's going on. And she looked at me and said, yeah, I will. Well, fast forward 18 years later, 2010 rolls around. Graham gets sick. She's not well. She passes. And now I had kind of forgot about that 1993 thing, okay? Because when my grandmother was ill, I was just focused on taking care of her. So at the end of her life, she passed through cancer. She had skin cancer on the outside of her face. And she passed. It was awful. I was a disaster. I was done. You know what I mean? I felt like I lost my best friend. And I wasn't thinking like, oh, I want to go meet a psychic or see something like that. I want that to happen. It wasn't like, oh, she's going to come through and find me, or I'm going to get this message. It wasn't like that. I was just a total disaster. And I took my mom out to go to dinner and was sitting in a restaurant. And this is in like 2010. I was sitting down right after my grand passed, about 3 weeks after. And a man walks in the restaurant with long hair, earrings, leather jacket. Tall guy comes up to me and my mom and says, did someone in your family just pass that had cancer right here on their face? Exactly where my grandmother had it. I go, yeah. And he goes, and which one of you or your mom, who was born on Easter Sunday? And my mom was born on Easter Sunday in 1956. Wow. So I'm like, I don't even know this guy. He's like, I'm a psychic. I'm doing a reading of the restaurant. I'm like, yeah, keep going. Whatever. I'm open, but keep going.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. I listened to everything he said, and that didn't do it for me. I wasn't like, oh, I'm totally sold. No. I waited a year. Everything he said at that point when I first met him was accurate, but I waited a year. I wasn't going online. I wasn't stalking him. I wasn't on Facebook. People could look this up. I wasn't tracking this guy down. Nothing like that. I waited a year, and I went through a separation with an ex-wife, and it was just, once again, another awful time, another traumatic time in life. And I went to go see this psychic because I'm like, maybe I can get some insight. Maybe I could get a message. Maybe something's going to happen. And when I saw him a year later, I sat down with him. I did a one-on-one reading for an hour. And at the end of the reading, he said to me, Andrew, you have the gift? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, you have the gift of being a medium. I'm like, I'm a firefighter. I'm not psychic. What do you mean? He goes, no. You're already getting some messages. You're getting some signals. He goes, I could help you interpret the messages. I'm not going to make you psychic, but I could help you. And I said, okay, what do I do? And he goes, come here on the weekend and I'll show you. I do classes with people. So I went to his studio that weekend on a Saturday morning. I went in. I was in a room full of 20 people I didn't know. We meditated for 5 minutes. He paired me up with a young lady that I did not know. We were sitting knee to knee, face to face. He goes, okay, just tell her what you're seeing. And from just meditating for 5 minutes to looking at this young lady, all of a sudden I felt a tingle up my spine. Like the hair on my neck was standing up, felt tingly. I looked at her, and right above her, like a reverse U right above her head, picture in black and white imagery, I started to see an image, and I saw a car in black and white. It was going down a block, but in reverse. And I'm explaining this to the girl. I go, I see a car. It's going in reverse down a block. It hits a tree, and there's a man in the car driving, and his left leg is cut off. I'm seeing a slice, and there's a V above him. I said, so is his name Vinny or Vince or something with a V? And she looked me dead in the eyes, and she goes, yeah, that happened to my Uncle Vinny. So I'm like, what?
This is first time out the gate.
First time I ever tried this. And I'm in a room full of people I don't know. So I'm thinking, okay, somebody set this up. They're trying to rope me in. There's a scam. Of course, I'm a New York City firefighter. This is like 2010, 2011, right? So I'd been on the job for 5-6 years. I'm skeptical of everything. I work in, Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, everywhere. I've seen and heard it all. So I'm like, there's got to be something. I'm looking for anything, right? Anything that's off. I don't know anyone in here. I don't trust anyone because I'm brand new. Why would I trust anyone? I don't know anyone in here. So this happened that first time. And then I'd go back every weekend training for $20 back in the day. They used to train in a room full of people. You throw $25 in a pot for 3 hours of mediumship training. But with a room full of 20, 30 people, and we'd sit and read each other. And every weekend, everyone's like, yeah. So finally, like, yes, when did I know it was for real? About 6 months into this, I sat with a lady that I met in that class, but we met privately. I said, hey, why don't we meet one night? We'll just train. We'll give it a whirl. So I sat with her, and this is unbelievable. It's nighttime. It's pitch black in a room. I had a candle lit. I'm looking at her, and I go, there's a young energy here. There's a young girl here. She's very young. I could literally see a white energy, like something coming off the ground about like a foot tall. I go, I could see something here in the room with us. And there's a female here, and there's a V with her again. I don't know if it's Victoria, Vanessa, something with a V. She's showing me like a missing person sign, something about a missing person. I'm seeing a boat capsize, and it's a holiday weekend. It's like 4th of July, or there's people celebrating, having a barbecue, but there's a boat capsize. And the girl I'm reading is like, yeah. Now, so I go, she's telling me about a man who has an A on his head, like an Avengers costume, that A, or Captain America, something with an A. The girl I'm reading, though, she goes, I don't know. I go, and she's also showing me there's a shirt that's like pinkish with these white hearts on it. And the girl goes, I don't know. So I finished the reading, and she goes, okay. She goes, my best friend, that was her daughter. Her daughter died. Her daughter's name began with a V. She died on a holiday weekend in Long Island. She was on a boat that flipped. And at first, they thought she was missing. That's why I was seeing missing person. Okay. And I go, what about the A on the head or the pink shirt? She goes, I don't know. She goes, but I'm going to go online. I want to show you some pictures we posted in memory of her. Now, I don't know who this person is, and I don't know who this person she's talking about. Right. So she goes and she shows me these photos, family photos. There's a man in the costume with the A on his head. I go, who's that? She goes, oh, that was her like stepdad, a guy that took care of her. And then there's a picture of the girl that transitioned, and she's wearing a pink shirt with white hearts all over it. Dude,
that's
my
crazy.
heart hit the ground. Now, I want to be clear, people listening. I'm doing this for 6 months. I'm not getting paid. I'm going to the firehouse. I'm working my 24-hour shifts, making my work in the firehouse. I'm happy there. And on my days off, I'm training with people, no charge, just trying to learn, grow, and most importantly, you're helping people. So I'm like, if I'm helping people through doing this, this is better than any amount of money you could put on it. So I was just doing this. I always say I did this for free for, 12 years. I started doing this because that's why I got into this, is to help others. So at that moment, though, that's when I knew that this was for real.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I want people to understand, you also, just so we can make sure that people can, that are listening to this, because, people drop off and stuff like that. So if someone would like to have a reading, what's your website, Andrew?
Very easy. So it's thepsychicfirefighter.com. You
That's
go
great.
there,
Yeah.
all my socials are there. You can book a reading. And like I always say, if you're going to book a reading with any psychic, whoever it is, because there's a lot of frauds, a lot of scams out there, I always try to find somebody that has a lot of experience. Okay, they've trained people. They've been around this a long time, because there's a lot of people that come and most people go. They don't stick around. So when I did this, before I went into this full-time professionally as like a business, I did this for 12 years on my own. I was like, I'm not charging anyone. I want to make sure 1,000% that I am doing this and I'm delivering and I'm giving the people coming to me what they need and what they want. I took this so serious because the guy that trained me, Robert Hansen, people could look him up in Merrick, Long Island. This guy was no joke. He was from an Irish Catholic family. His dad was a New York City cop. And the way we trained, this was really serious.
Now, with your grandma passing away in 1993, and then you having this experience in 2010.
She passed in 2010. She passed in 2010.
Oh, okay, she passed in 2010.
Yes.
So, with her passing away in 2010, did you ever have contact with her again, or was there?
Oh, yeah. So that was the initial thing just with him, right? And then when I saw him a year later, all different things came through. So that was the other cool thing. If you go to a psychic and you go back 6 months or a year or a month or 2 months later, shouldn't be the same thing again. Because why? Any psychic should be connecting and channeling and getting a stream of information. It should be the same thing over and over. That's nonsense. So when I went back to him, it was all new things. And I remember a thing that the psychic told me. He said, if you want to make contact with your grandmother after she passed another way, you can go outside or go in your room at night, ask for a sign. So I did that. I went outside at night and I said, Graham, if you're out there, if you could hear me, if you could feel me, if you could see me, can you give me a sign? And all of a sudden, a ball of light appeared, like an orb or something. It glided across the sky and vanished. Now I'm like, what the heck was that? So same thing. I did that, and then I would do it. And every time I go out and call to her, still to this day, okay, we're talking, 15 years later, it still happens.
That's wild. Now, because you said a ball of light, orbs, and I've had some people talk about this. This is really interesting. And I know you've had some UFO, situations that's happened to you. Do you feel like that was her energy, something from her higher self, the future? Like,
Yep.
What do you think that was? I mean, obviously it was her, because she gave you a sign, but what do you think that was specifically?
So I had studied ancient Egyptian mythology for years as well. I really looked into life after death. I worked in a funeral home as a mortician. Okay, I was a funeral director. Like, I really want to know all those things, right? So I really looked deeply into this. And the Egyptians feel, and I feel somewhat like this too, that after you transition, after you die, part of your soul will stay around. One of the pieces of the soul. They say there's 7 parts of the soul, according to the Egyptians, but one of them basically stays around. That's those paranormal things. That's those poltergeist things. That's these types of things. What I think is, right now, you and I, as we're talking, picture a radio dial. You and I right now, we're on 97 FM. When we die, we go to 99 FM. The UFOs, the aliens, the angels, the gods, whatever you want to call them, they're all at 99 FM. Now, when you and I, we sit and we meditate and we focus to make contact, we say, hey, can you give us a sign? You and I meditate. Now we raise our vibration. So we change our radio station from 97. We go to 98 FM. When the soul's on the other side, when the UFOs, aliens, when all of that, when they see us doing that, they drop down from 99 FM to 98, and we could have contacts.
That's so good. Yeah.
That
makes it so much simple. Yeah. That's a really, really simple. So this is, here it is, you're a firefighter, everything's good. You're kind of questioning this. You go through years and years of helping people, and training. When was the leap when you decided to go full time? What was the catalyst for that?
So in 2018, I got a text message from, this is crazy. I got a text message from supposedly a journalist from the New York Post. And it was, we're dropping an article about you tomorrow in the Post. I'm like, what? I never even heard of this person. Now, growing up in New York, you know all the big journalists, you know who the big names are.
Yeah.
Never even heard of this person. So I looked them up quick, and all the pieces they've done were hit pieces on cops and firemen. So I'm like, oh my God, they're going to say, I don't even know what. So I'm like, can you send me a copy of what you wrote so I could proofread it? I think that's fair, right? And because you want me to give you a comment or whatever, right? How can I give you a comment unless I see what you wrote? And they refused to send me a copy. I go, wait, you spent months or whatever, weeks, months researching me. You put this together and you're calling me the day before you're going to drop it for a comment. You're not even going to show me what you wrote. That's not good journalism. So I called an attorney who was a UFO contactee, this guy named Ray Hernandez in Florida. He runs the Free organization. Amazing, great guy. And he's a real UFO contactee. And he said, just don't give a comment. So lo and behold, now I'm like, oh my God, I got to call the fire department and tell them because they're going to drop this. And they, the Post contacted me, so I can't just turn my head. So I had to call the New York City Fire Department press desk and tell them everything. I had to. I was like, I'm not doing anything wrong ethically. I'm doing all this stuff on my days off for work. I'm helping people. I'm not even charging anyone. Why would they even care? I'm not doing anything wrong. But you're thinking, oh my God, they might think I'm nuts. They might send me to a psych ward. I don't know. So I called the press desk and their response to me was, no problem. We have no problem with what you're doing. More guys should do good things on their time off like you're doing. So they called the Post though and they said, don't run the article. The guy doesn't want it. Leave it alone. You know what I mean? Just leave it alone. And they ran it anyway. And then once that happens, sometimes a curse at first, what you think is a curse, ends up becoming a blessing. So in July of 2018, they ran this article, New York City firefighter claims he's a psychic medium, talks to aliens, UFOs. I don't deny anything in the article, but once that happened, this thing took off. Now, it was true when they wrote the article too. I had met a doctor from Stanford University, Dr. Gary Nolan, because while I was experiencing all this weird stuff, I'm like, what do I do? Can I see a doctor? Am I nuts? A person said to me, hey, you need to find a geneticist because I think that possibly your DNA might be different because you're having a high volume of UFO contact. You're having a lot of psychic things happen. Speak to an immunologist or geneticist. Maybe they could give you some answers. Thank God they told me that. And I did contact Dr. Gary Nolan at Stanford. He's world renowned. You could look him up.
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
He made me feel so calm because he was like, you're not crazy. I know what's going on. I've heard this before. Just, if anyone gives you a hard time, he told me basically, he goes, just tell them, yeah, I have a really awesome life and I have really cool things that have happened to me. Too bad. He was very blunt, but I'm like, I wanted to be humble. I'm like, I'm still serving the public and this is a weird thing. So thank God I had people around me to kind of guide me through things. And he was one of the first people, very credible. Whereas as opposed to just posting things on Facebook or online, oh my God, man, I tried to go on social media at first to get some insight and it could be a rough spot to go, man. You got to be careful who you talk to.
Yeah, I can imagine that. You mentioned UFOs and so, not only do you have this psychic ability, what are the correlations between people that have that gift and then you seeing these beings reaching out?
So in 1999, I was in the U.S. Coast Guard. So I was stationed in St. Petersburg, Florida. And we used to patrol the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean. So to make a long story pretty short, I'm a lone night watchman on top of the boat. It's after midnight. I'm looking through night vision goggles, regular goggles, and I see two silver objects kind of moving, staggered, one in front of the other. So I call down to the bridge where the radar men and the officers all let them know. I don't know what it is. They come up. We're all looking at these objects for maybe 10, 15 minutes. No one's saying UFO. I'm thinking something, military, I don't know, something. I'm watching this. There's about 20 of us up there. We're all watching this. The two objects merge together. And when they merge together, they don't take off. There's no trail, no trace, no sound, nothing. They just vanish. Wow. And I'm looking at my shipmates and my officers and I'm like, I'm 19, I'm like, what the heck? What was that? That's crazy. And I didn't realize at the time that was just the beginning, right, of so much more to come. I saw that. I was amazed. I was blown away. I was never told not to talk. I was never brought in a room. I was never shook down. The guys I worked with were like, Andrew, you're going to see a lot of things out at sea. Unless it's like a direct threat or something, then it's not a big deal. But, just see it, take note, and you're going to see a lot more in your career. And you'll see other guys that have 20, 30 years sea time. Oh, my God, they've had, tons of sightings over the years. But back in the day, late 90s, no one would talk about this. So I didn't say anything. And then in 2001, I saw a guy named Dr. Stephen Greer go to the National Press Club in Washington, basically saying in May of 2001, UFOs are real. Here are the military guys that were involved with this big cover-up. And I'm like, this is amazing. And then in September of 2001, 9/11 happens. So the UFO thing, pushed to the side. 2011 rolls around. I'm a firefighter for 5-6 years. My grandmother passes. I'm on the journey. I'm on the mission, right? I got to get these answers. I said, I got to go meet that guy, Dr. Greer. I heard he can teach people how to do contact and protocols through meditation to make these UFOs appear. So I flew out to the desert in Cali in 2011. And October of 2011, I went with my partner at the time, who was a New York cop. We went out there. He taught us the protocols. And from that day till now, anytime I go outside, if I meditate or even if I don't meditate, I've had a tremendous amount of UFO contact. I've seen thousands of craft over the years.
Do you think that their response to you is because of the gift that you have?
Yes.
Do you correlate the two together, or are they separate?
So when I met Dr. Gary Nolan, I asked him about all this, and he said, there's a brain inside of our brain called the antenna. Okay, they've done studies on this. They have a fancy name for it if you look this up, but basically, to keep it simple for your listeners, there's a brain inside the brain. Now, through NDEs, out-of-body experiences, trauma, drama, all these things, somehow this brain inside the brain can get strengthened. They don't really know how. But for me, I could definitely say I identify with this. Now, picture your antenna raising, right? So you have this brain inside your brain, and when you strengthen this thing or you raise the antenna, the phenomena, the UFOs, the afterlife, they are aware. So they will attract, they will come to people who they call antennas. Basically, if they want to say like a high-level contactee, someone that's having contact every day, yeah, the phenomena knows because they feel safe. They have a bond. They have a relationship. So people like myself that don't have any fear with this, when I was taught how to do this in 2011, the reason I think that all this happened, when I was taught how to do this, Dr. Greer said, you want to have a childlike mind, a Zen mind, beginner's mind. There's a great book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. If you have a childlike mind, a very green mind when you're making peaceful contact with UFOs, that's all you'll ever have. And I could say 15 years later, all I've had were 100% peaceful contact experiences over the years.
Have you done psychic readings where people have had abductions and stuff like that?
Yes. So I know that personally, there's a guy named Richard Doty. You could look him up. I know him personally. He worked for the Air Force OSI, Office of Special Investigations. And there's a team that still exists. He's not part of this, but there is a team that he was aware of. He was briefed on. There's a team of humans that were going out and staging alien abductions over the years. So I could say
heard about that, yes.
For sure. Like that I know. Are there aliens from Zeta Reticuli or wherever coming and poking and prodding people? This is what I would say, because I asked Greer this. What about this and that? He goes, Andrew, if an alien, say they came and they wanted your DNA, they just pick it up off the ground. They don't need to take you and poke and prod you. I'm like, that makes sense. That's so human, right? To torture someone, right? To take you and torture you. If you're 50 years advanced or 500 or 1,000 years more advanced, which these species are, you have obviously moved past the point of a type 1 civilization, meaning you move past the point of bombing and hurting each other, because if you haven't, you wouldn't exist anymore. So that means I don't think these aliens are responsible for it, or at least anymore. But yes, I've met people that I believe in their heart, they're good people, that they believe they were brought on a craft and they were poked and prodded. I can tell you this, our own, I wouldn't say the military, but there's secret projects out there that have the technology for you not even to leave your home, that they can come and they can simulate an abduction where you think you're on a craft. You haven't even left your bed. Yeah,
and I've heard tons of stories like that, and I'm in complete agreement. I think there's a lot of these, because it's like if the military, and I don't want to get into this too much of a side note, but these UAPs and these whistleblowers from the government and all that, I'm always careful. Is this like a psychops? Is this another stage thing? Like I'm always skeptical when it comes to things like that, if you know what I mean.
I would say when people ask me about disclosure, is it coming? That's why it's never going to happen, because then eventually they have to answer, well, what about the abductions? And if they say, hey, and I've met guys, and Greer had guys in his team that used to work on these abduction teams, and eventually they get older, they have kids, and they're like, what am I doing? I don't want to live like this, and they spill their guts. So you never know. People can always change. That's why recovery is possible. Just like with this, if you're doing bad or you're working in these black projects, you think there's no way out, there is a way out, man. You could always change.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I want to get a little bit more into when you were working in a funeral home and stuff like that. If we could kind of step back a little bit more.
Sure.
were you having contact then too? Like not UFO contact, but like is there a residual? Is that soul, that part that you were talking about, that little percentage of soul, were you able to have conversations there?
Yes, so it's amazing, right? I get a job in a funeral home, not knowing anyone here in Australia. Nobody. I don't know anyone in that industry. I just get a job. And the two girls that trained me in the mortuary were psychics. So
Wow.
Go figure, right? Go figure. You're right. It's all connected. Of course, once you see it's either everything is synchronicity, good or bad, but I believe everything is. You got to go with the flow and roll with it and trust them. But yeah, so they trained me, but obviously they were like, I'd been doing this longer than them. And they were like, Andrew, you picking up anything? So when someone would come in that was departed, what we would do is sometimes they would say, what are you picking up? So they give you a death certificate that says how they caused the MCOD, medical cause of death. Okay, so before we read it, they would say, what are you picking up? So, for example, one time someone came in and I said, they're telling me that they had blood clotting just below their kneecap in their lower left calf, and it spread. They had clotting and that spread, and they had a heart attack, blah, blah, blah. Let's see what the certificate says. They're telling me that that's how they passed, though. When you open someone up to embalm them, to prepare them for a funeral, you got to open everything up. So sometimes the paperwork didn't match what the soul was telling me, so we knew by opening them up to validate, whoa, the soul's telling me something true about how they passed. Whereas the paperwork was just an aneurysm in the brain, which they might have had that too. But yeah, I got some very interesting details and I saw some wild stuff. Like people that were dressed in suits, but they were not present, meaning they would transition, walking through walls, my name being called in the morning. And I work with women, mostly, 90% women in this industry, women that were there for 20, 30 years. They told me stories without me telling them anything about what I do. They told me stories, paranormal stories, going back to the 80s and 90s that happened in the funeral industry that they saw. So, yeah, it happens. Amazing.
How do you, because you had said, you said something I thought was really interesting, especially when you were talking about being an antenna with the UFOs. But whether it's with the so-called dead or UFOs or whatever, you said that you didn't fear. Majority of people are very fearful towards all this stuff. How do you not have fear?
So it's like anything. People will ask me, oh, when you go to a fire, are you fearless? I said, no. Oh, my God, I got to run into a burning building. I'm not crazy. I'm not stupid. First couple of fires I went to, oh, my God, you're ready to crap my pants. Of course, it's scary at first, but eventually you get used to it. So I think all those years of being around fires and doing medical calls as a firefighter and seeing people with needles hanging out of their arms, suicides, all the horror and drama and trauma. Going to a funeral home, I'm like, they're gone already. I'm not trying to save them. They're gone already. Now I need to get them to go where they got to go. And I treated everyone that walked in there like my grandmother. So that's the way I always looked at it. Anyone that came in, whether it was a 1-month-old, which I used to do children's funerals too, unfortunately, it does happen. Once in a while, you got to do them. And I had little kids. I got a baby. I had, little kids at home. I always said, whoever came in, that's like my grandmother. So I was able to shut off very good. When making contact, though, be careful who you do it with. So I only like making UFO contact with 1 or 2 people. I don't like big groups. Why? Because you have a lot of different energies. And if someone in the circle is not well or they're not feeling good, you can pick up on that. If you're an empath or you got that going on, oh my God, you'll leave in worse shape than you came in. So most of the contact I make is alone or with a real close loved one or a friend that I know is just like me. So find a like-minded person, or when you get comfortable, you'll do the protocols. You notice the best results are by yourself. If you have that fear, some people will say like a prayer or something for protection. I don't because I look at it like, hey, something's out there and they're going to come saying, oh, don't hurt me or don't attack me. Like they're going to listen to that, like a demon's going to listen to that. No.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're going to laugh at you. People like to put a circle around it. Come on, a demon's going to laugh at that. So when you're going in with the right mindset, don't rush this. If you're not ready to make contact, don't rush it. Wait. And when you're ready to do it, find people like Greer or whoever that have a lot of experience to help guide you through those rough patches.
No, that makes complete sense. So, because it's just so interesting to me, the amount of contact that you're having and what does it do to you physically? Does it drain you like after you do a reading, or after you have, contact with the UFO? Like what one, you kind of explained a little bit of how it's happening, like in the beginning when you saw the B's and the U's and it was black and white and you saw the car. is it kind of like a motion picture?
Yes.
And, like let's start with the psychic part and then we'll go into UFOs. Like explain to people what you're seeing and how it translates.
I'm seeing an old Charlie Chaplin film.
That's cool.
That's the best way I could describe it. And it's tough because it's in black and white, right? It's
is
like
it silent?
Once in a while I'll hear a name, but when they talk, it's like they're at the bottom of a swimming pool. So it's very garbled. So when I've heard psychics say, oh, I hear crystal clear, and I mean, the psychics that I know that I'm around, that doesn't happen. But if it does for you, great. That's really tough to do. It's very garbled, but the images are crystal clear.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel like when now, do you have contact with the UFOs? Do they speak to you? Are you watching or seeing something like the Charlie Chaplin movie with them?
With the UFOs, I see them physically in 3D. They will appear. I've seen them land. I've seen entities get off. I've seen them in my bedroom. I've seen them everywhere you can think of. I've seen them at work. I've seen them when I've been reviving people at a fire scene. I've seen purple angelic type beings, whatever you want to call them, in the room with us. I've physically seen them. But the communication with all of them, UFOs, angels, stuff like that, is mostly telepathic. Okay, it's interesting. There's not many words spoken. So very rarely, if it is, it'll just be like one thing, one word. Like it's not like a novel they're channeling. The information, though, telepathically, oh man, you could have some interesting hardcore contact experiences and downloads.
Yeah, so it's like HD TV. They're actually there. Unlike, the psychic medium side where it's Charlie Chaplin movie, black and white with gargled voices in the swimming pool. This is telepathic, crystal clear, HD looking, like they're there.
Yeah, so when people say the dead, do you see them? I said, no, I don't see your relative because I don't know them. And when you die, right, you transition, you don't look like this anymore. You picture like an orb. You're a ball of energy. So that's why as well, they can't talk to you. They don't have a mouth anymore. You lose the shell. So now you're in an energetic form, but somehow there's this telepathy, I think, through our soul and theirs. If your listeners are tuning in, there was a great study done on HBO and a book was written. I believe it was called Life After Life. And it was with George Anderson, John Edward, the guy that trained me, Robert Hansen was part of the study at Arizona State University. They took mediums, they put a wall in between them. They couldn't see who they were reading. And at the end of the study basically was somehow the mind of the medium is able to connect with the heart of the person they read. That's what they gather. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's just crazy. It's awesome. So, like for instance, because I know our other host, Alexander, he has, I've never seen any of that or been in part of any of this, but I like to study it and talk to people like you because I find it so interesting. But he's had, UFO contact. He's had,
yeah, amazing. So that's the cool thing about what I'm doing. Everywhere I've gone in the world, Jason, everywhere. It's amazing. I still see the same stuff. So it's like, is it following me around? Or is it just non-local with whoever you're with? I don't know, but it goes everywhere.
Yeah, that's so wild. It's interesting to me, too, because, whenever it's almost, obviously you would have to think as, spiritual beings, which we are. Every religion says that, even if you're like, I'm Catholic, I'm Muslim, whatever, there would have to be a variety or spectrum of people on all different sides of things that could lean more towards, having contact with spiritual beings, whether you believe them to be angels or orbs or whatever you want to call them, that you would, with 9 billion people, you would have to have a percentage of people that would be able to, it just makes sense. Like logically, you would have to think that, you know what I mean? It's so crazy how people will dismiss a psychic medium. You know what I mean?
I could tell you this though, right? And most of it is unknown, but the government and the military, they have been from day one extremely interested in this subject, and they have the best mediums in the world working with them. The guy that trained me, Robert Hansen, worked with the feds for a decade trying to find missing children. Japan, he went all over the place. And he said, Andrew, if the dead could tell us, right, who killed them, we'd solve every crime. But they can't, or they don't, or whatever. So he said, it's very tough. He goes, I did it for a decade. He goes, and most of the time they can't figure it out because these, right, they would have solved the Long Island serial kill. They would have figured out all these things years ago. So, why not? So that, right, for whatever reason, they don't tell us those things. I think because that could interfere with free will or something. I asked the medium that I trust, Nancy Weber, I asked that, and she said she's worked on a lot of homicide cases with the police. and on the other side of the killer. And she claimed to go in the mind of the killer and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, why don't the dead tell us that? And she said, Andrew, the souls have told her that sometimes they don't want the crime to be figured out, because if it does, it will open up more trauma and drama for their loved ones here on Earth, whereas opposed to just leaving it as it is, they want to leave it alone. So I'm like, that's interesting. I never thought of that. So who knows?
Yeah, and it's also interesting, some people believe in reincarnation. I happen to believe in that. It makes sense spiritually evolving into different meat suits, to evolve more and more. And then eventually Rudolf Steiner talks about, we're angels in training, that type of thing,
Yeah.
So yeah, as we evolve up higher and higher, that makes total sense to me. The Rosicrucians talked about that, and for me, it resonates. And so, like whenever I see somebody that, whether it's me, I die early, or get, a serial killer attacks me, God forbid, whatever. It's so interesting how we dismiss, like you said, we dismiss what actually is happening when you look at it from, millions of years or eternity, or the evolution of the learning that has to happen in this life, because you need a serial killer and you need a victim. There's learning lessons in both. That's hard for people to understand that.
That's, first of all, Rudolf Steiner, that's where I learned Qigong. I practiced Qigong. I learned it at the Rudolf Steiner Center in Manhattan from a lovely lady from Staten Island, Ellen. And people ask me, oh, that's nonsense, blah, blah, blah. No. I was in a room with people that had stage 3, stage 4 cancer, that were on their way out. They had tried everything else, and those people are still alive today. They beat it. Now, there was in the article, they said I said to cure cancer. No, I've never cured any cancer. This is what I've seen, though. I've been in the room with people that were ill, and through meditation, through Qigong, through, healthy living, all that stuff, of course, I have seen people overcome that stuff. Someone could put their hands on someone to cure cancer. Great, but I'm not Jesus, so that's not me. But Qigong is a great practice. That is, Rudolf Steiner, absolutely amazing. So, yeah, have you ever heard of Qigong?
Yeah, I've heard of Qigong. I've watched people do it. I've never partaked in it at all. But yeah, there's a guy I follow, and he swears by it, named Paul Chek. He's like a spiritual teacher, and he, asks everyone to, at least try it, and then, watch what happens. Because it's kind of a form of which is interesting to me, because it's kind of a form of, movement with meditation, and you're moving the energies in your body from, what I've learned and read about.
It's a great practice. I met a guy that was a quadriplegic, couldn't get out of bed. He is a Qigong instructor in California now. People can Google, look him up. Amazing. I met a master, Ming Tong Gu. He came to Manhattan. I did not know him. Ellen, the lady that trained me, said, I want you to meet Ming Tong. I met him. He didn't speak much English. When I came up to him just to introduce myself, he looked at me and he goes, you are blessed, my son. You are working with the angels. That's all he said to me. I'm like, and I took a picture of him. I'm like, what is that? Oh my God, what does that mean? I was honored, like, whoa.
Yeah.
So what you said before about you need the good, you need the bad, that's where it's interesting, right? When I get a 911 call as a firefighter and I show up to the house, I don't ask the person at the door, hey, could I see the criminal record of your loved one who's having a heart attack on the ground? No, I'm doing CPR on him.
Right.
You know what I mean? So throw that out the window. Sometimes people have a rough life. They go a different way. Things happen. People can recover. People could change at any point. Same thing at a funeral home. Someone's coming through the door. We don't ask to see their criminal record or, hey, can we see, who's coming to the funeral or their background? No, because we all end up in the same place. So I think these 100%. Things that I went through, they taught me a lot about life and religion, that, hey, you could change it any time. Or if you don't want to, okay, maybe you'll get reincarnated. Maybe you won't. I don't know. But I see one thing. There is someone out there that loves you no matter what space you're in.
Now, is that like whenever you do psychic medium work, and obviously it's I've watched shows and seen all that, obviously it can be very emotional for the person, especially if they have a husband that they've lost or something like that. You can watch that, especially with really strong feminine energy. Somebody that has really strong feminine energy, and then there was, an influential, where it's a grandfather or their father, someone that really loved them with the masculine energy. You can really see that, it transforms them when they have that conversation. What are some of the things that you've noticed with people after they have a conversation, through you? How does it begin to change their life?
Well, it's amazing, right? It's when people apply things, great. I only know if they come back to me and tell me, right? Because I don't track them down. I'm not friends with these people. People just come. Most of my clients, I don't even know them. But I had a lady come. She wrote a review about this. It's out there. People could read it a couple times. She came to me and I basically said, hey, there's someone in your immediate family. You need to go check on them right now. Right now. Okay. I got a weird feel. I got a bad feeling that they're in a bad space. She left my home. It was a face-to-face reading. And I didn't know what she was doing. She went to her person's house in the family. She said she walked in the door and the person was drinking, taking pain meds, about to literally transition themselves, basically. Now, a couple months later, her and the sisters, they came to my house, all three of them. I got to meet them. And the sister came in and she goes, thank you. You saved my life. So I'm like, I mean, I don't want to take that on either way because sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I just say, hey, I just tell you whatever I'm seeing. Sometimes people think it's something stupid or mundane, but if you don't act upon it, I don't know and we'll never know, but you got to take action with this. So yeah, I've seen people change their lives. I've seen people not change their lives, you know what I mean? And come back and I didn't do what you said. And I'm like, no, I'm not God. You don't have to listen to what I'm saying. I'm just giving you what I'm seeing, but you have free will, I think. So you got to choose what you got to do. But oh my God, that is I can't even put that into words, seeing that and helping someone. And I had another person come. This is amazing. This girl comes to me. I read her. I'm describing someone getting executed in front of their kids. Wow. I said, this soul's here telling me they got executed in front of their kids. The girl's hysterical crying. After she goes, did your wife tell you I was coming? I go, no, I don't even know who you are. She goes, I grew up with your wife. I'm like, oh, no, I don't tell my wife who my clients are. That's private. She goes, Andrew, I've been in therapy for the last year. And nothing would work. She goes, this 1 hour, that did it for me. Thank you. So,
wow. Hey. She just needed that, that energy, that release to be able to.
Jason, after right after Graham passed, I spoke to a priest. I spoke to my family, friends. No one could give it to me what I needed. I didn't even know what I needed, but no one could do it until Robert Hansen walked in the room and bang, said what he said. And my mom is even really skeptical about this stuff. And we go, okay, there's no way that random guy could have known that. It just did it. So for a lot of people, it's the last resort going to the medium. You know what I mean? They try everything else and then they're like, hey, let me try it. What's the worst that'll happen?
How do you when you talk to someone and, maybe they've tried different mediums and, some are, frauds, if you want to use that word, maybe some don't even realize that they feel like they have a gift or something, or I would imagine the gift can be different percentages, of how empathic you are or however, or psychic that you are. What are some of the things that are kind of warning signs that if somebody wants to, if somebody's wanting to have, a reading, some of the things that they should watch out for?
So I tend to not go to anyone that's brand new. I just want to wait, see what they've been through. Has anyone gone to them that I've known, right? Have they trained with anyone, and who have they trained with, right? Look at the pedigree, right? Like in sports, who's the dad? Who's this? Did they all play the same thing? And if I'm walking in the firehouse, I'm not going to go up to a guy that's got 6 months to train me. I'm going to go to a guy that's got 20 years and say, show me everything, bro. So I did the same thing with what I do. So if you're training, I've had people I love new say, hey, I've told them, I'll train you, I'll help you, I'll bring you to someone. And they went to the wrong person or somebody that they thought they were besties with. And it usually never works out because they don't have the experience of when things don't go the way you want, when the reading doesn't go the way you want, when the client isn't happy. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've heard it all, seen it all. Now at this point, at first I didn't though. So when you have that bad reading or the thing that someone doesn't connect, because sometimes people will come to you and lie. I've had people sit with me and I'm saying, blah, 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 blah. No, I don't know what that means. I said, well, there's two options. Either I'm off or they're lying, but I've been doing this long enough. If I'm sitting there for a few minutes and no, I just go, hey, you got to go somewhere else. I can't help you because it's just not working now. And I don't want to waste an hour and then think, oh my God, I'm not doing this. So you got to find somebody that's got receipts. And I would be very disciplined with this because this is no joke. And I've heard horrendous things from people I know of what psychics have told them. So yeah, I mean, another thing too, there's people on TV that people think, oh, they're great, they're this and that some people that are out there in the mainstream that I know are total frauds, people I know that know them. So I'm very skeptical of people that just go up to people in a food store and just randomly read them and say that's on the spot. No, that's all scripted for TV. Come on, let's wake up.
Yeah,
of course. You got to sign a release. Get out of here. Why? Because I said, listen, when I lived in Brighton Beach, Brooklyn, okay, right on the boardwalk there, you think I'd walk up to some random guy on the boardwalk and start channeling or talking to his deceased mom or grandma? What if that was the person that beat him or abused him? That guy would shoot me. No way anyone's doing that without a release. That's nonsense. So if you want to get real, get real. Like I say to people, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what, whatever's coming through. That's what you need to hear. That's what they're telling me. But you want to hear everything's great and pinky-dory, and that's someone else will tell you, and they'll lie to you. I'm just going to tell you whatever's going on.
I want to, we're coming up on the hour, but I want to, and this has been super fascinating, Andrew, and I love this. I want to we have a younger audience, a lot of millennials and stuff like that. And I know mental health issues are really strong right now, and a lot of different things are going on. A lot of people don't know what their purpose or path is. But there's some people, and I don't know if it's because of the new generation and people are being more, open, not so close-minded. So there's more, empaths coming on the scene. If somebody feels like they're unique or, they feel like they're, like there's something wrong with them. Like I have a friend, for instance, she was like, I feel like I'm seeing people like that aren't there. Like, am I going crazy? That type of thing. What do you tell people like that if they're questioning and they don't know what the hell's going on, they feel like they're off, they're wrong, how can they get clarity on it?
So most of the psychics that I know, right, there's a couple things that we have in common, right? And this is big. It's like across the board. Number one, none of us drank, or they're in recovery, like that's right off the bat. So you got to eliminate that because you want to make sure it's not ayahuasca or edibles or whatever, right? You got to eliminate that stuff.
Right.
If it's not that, another thing I've seen is all of us have had really traumatic things happen. And through the trauma, those have been like the best, most painful lessons. But that's brought out the most growth. Like after 9/11, I know a lot of guys that was seeing entities or UFOs. And why is it going on? There's something to do with this trauma that the phenomena comes. I feel from being around this for a long time. It's just as a reminder, like, keep going. Like, you're on the right path, man. Keep going. We're eternal beings. You're just in this temporary meat sack. Yes, you're tapping in more into more of your abilities. As you do that, right? My circle of friends now, being into this for years, is smaller than it's ever been, but it's tighter. It's more solid than ever. I don't want a million friends. I don't want a million followers. I don't care about that stuff. I would just want a couple of people that I know I could depend on, that are there for me, that I could be myself and talk about anything. It took me a long road, though, to figure it out. So if someone's going through that, I always say, you're in the right spot. Just as you meet people, if some don't resonate or they try to steer you away, that's part of the process. Just keep going. Stick around the ones that are guiding you and putting you in the right direction. Because I was blessed and UFO-wise, I had a lady up in Albany, New York, who was a PhD, a psychologist, who was a contactee, who helped me as well evolve all of my abilities in UFO contact. And if I didn't have all these gifted people around me, I might have just ran away from this phenomena. So you got to be so careful who you tell and what you tell. Not everyone's going to understand your story. And sometimes people will say not everyone's entitled to your story. But with social media, right, we tell everything now. So that's up to you. I'm not saying share your story to everyone. What I recommend, this is just my personal thing. Find somebody out there to in private talk to that's been through it first before you tell the world. Go and find a psychic or somebody that you resonate with, that you're like, hey, I think I could talk to them. They have what I want to become, or I think what I want to become. Pick their brain, train with them. And with the internet, oh my God, back in the day, I had to go in person to train. There was none of this. So it's a gift now. I could train people now through my computer. I don't have to be in person. So it's no excuses now with the internet.
No, I love that. And one of the things that you did and that I've gotten and I've seen from this that people really need to pay attention is you weren't a victim to your gifts, and sit there and just kind of like, oh my God, I'm an empath. You went and sought and found experts. Like you went to the desert. You went, to talk to a person in Stanford and a PhD and this person that, you found these people and found a way to have a conversation with them. And that's unusual. A lot of people won't do that. Do you know what I mean?
The credibility with this is big. So I've been interviewed by people at the Times, and I'm just saying, when you start doing this and you start talking to other people, then other people find out about these agencies. And then, of course, you're reputable now. And then it's like, well, how do you know what you're filming is genuine? Anyone listening, they're like, this guy's saying all this stuff. How do we know it's real? I post all my stuff, everything I film. I've always shared. Last year, Channel 7 and MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, contacted me and said, hey, can we analyze your UFO footage? They did. They called me the next day and they're like, how are you doing this? This is the real thing. They put my UFO footage in a TV series called Close Encounters Down Under. So the credibility thing is gigantic. If you're going to talk the talk, you got to back it up, just like the resources. I got emails, I got connections. I'm not sharing emails I've had with these people because what's amazing too, the amazing people I met along this journey, all these PhDs, all these people connected, they as well are connected to the phenomena. It's not just they're just curious. No, Gary Nolan will talk about it. They've seen something. It's in the family. This all public stuff now. Back years ago, we didn't talk about this. Now it's all public knowledge. And the members of Congress now, the reason they're pushing disclosure or trying to, I know for sure personally that, I don't know about all of them, but there's a bunch of them, the members of Congress, that have had contacts.
Yeah, that would make sense.
That.
Yeah.
They're not making, they're not talking about it, but I'm telling you, they are.
Yeah, there's, I mean, even like, you've had a couple senators and stuff like that that's even said, you know, like, or said, you know, we've heard people, they'll say, we've heard people that, you know, were in this agency and, you know, what's going on or, you know, so I feel like, obviously, you know, the government doesn't want this out. I mean, that would be, and then obviously if you would take something that was truly happening, how would you pervert it for power? You know, so that makes sense to me. That's what, you know, a deep state would do. You know, I mean, you're going to take something and make it, you know, so you can scare people with it or have it like, you know, sci-fi and, you know, whatever it may be. So that's so great. So I want people to, if they want to get a hold of you again, Andrew, what's the way, what's the easiest way? What's your Instagram?
All my social media is pretty much the same. It's either my name or the Psychic Firefighter or Psychic Firefighter. I'm the only one you'll find out there. Or just go to the psychicfirefighter.com. Yeah. And I want to just add on that, okay, about the disclosure thing, because this is big. This is why people like myself, I heard the call. I mean, the internal call. No one called me and said, you got to get it. No. Internally with the contact and everything I was having and externally what I was seeing and interpreting, I go, it's time for me to go all in with this. I don't care about government disclosure. They'll follow us. Trust me. I know. I've talked to people personally on that other side. They're coming to us, people like myself, for answers now. So just keep going in that direction, because if there's ever some mass sighting or mass event or they have contact, they're going to come to the people that have been doing this for 20 years. There's an organization in Long Island. They were just interviewed by Russ Coulthard, who I know, he's a friend. He's a great guy. And there's a team in Long Island that did a 10-month study of UAPs over Robert Moses Park. That's where I grew up, is Long Island. And I've been filming and talking about filming contact in the sky for years. They're just filming the things I've seen over the years. There's nothing new, but they have the high-tech equipment to go out and show it that, once again, wow, they got the best equipment out there. This is the real thing. They had a white paper written. This is no joke now. This is the real deal. And people, if you're listening and you're resonating with this, keep at it and find the others. You'll find them and they'll find you.
What is the last question? And then you know, I'll let you go. What is the, because it's so fascinating to me, what is the difference between New York and Australia? Do you feel any differences? Is there any empathic feelings on that? Like, is there more UFO contact like in Australia, or is there more in New York? Like, you know, I know you moved and all that stuff. I don't need to know the reasons for that, but I mean, what were you? Do you feel more free? Like, what was the overall macro of New York City compared to Australia?
So, just people listening, I got asked to speak at a UFO conference here in Australia, so I did. Met a girl traveling, got married, never came back, basically. But anyway, that's another story for next episode.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, amazing. But anyway, you are the portal, so you'll take it anywhere you go. I had more contact, I think, just because I lived in New York longer, right? So I've seen some of the same craft being in New York or here. So it's interesting. So they following me or, you know, whatever's going on. Yeah, you are the portal. Wherever I've gone all over the world, the craft, or I'll get the same feeling, they'll appear. People are different, you know, some of that stuff, but it doesn't matter if I'm right near JFK Airport in Brooklyn on Coney Island. They come, or I'm sitting literally right outside my house last night, right outside my house. I just look up in the sky, bang, something will zip over my head. Most of the time, I don't even film this stuff. because I'm just like, oh, cool, whatever. I don't have my camera or whatever. I'm just looking. I'm enjoying it. I've seen so many of them, but I try to record what I can when I can. It's for the people out there that are new and just going, oh my God, there's more to this once again. Real differences. I think Australia is just like less people, so people are a little more laid back. If it was more congested, you have to worry about more nonsense. But I'm just overall, if UFOs landed, if there was like a mass thing happening, I don't care if it was here in Australia or New York, people would come outside, look and go, all right, that's cool. They go right back inside and they turn on Fox News watching the debate. Honestly, why? Because that's what's happening. They've talked about disclosure and people are fixated on a guy who cheated on his pregnant wife. No offense. I'm just saying Trump, I'm not beginning into politics, but it's like WWF wrestling for adults. Like, come on, grow up, man. If we all came together like for that nonsense, like we did for like spirituality, growth, life after death. Imagine everyone came together for something like this, for peaceful, doing a CE5. Oh my God, we could evolve like a civilization.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me, it's like everybody knows it's fake. Like, yeah, you don't become a politician if you're not narcissistic.
Oh my God,
on either side. Like it's like you said, it's WWE. They're like wearing different masks. It's so silly. It's so crazy. And you.
When I was a firefighter, okay, the president used to fly into Randall's Island. That's where the New York Fire Academy is. So one day, 2 helicopters flew in. President Obama got off of one. President Obama got off the other. How's that possible? They got into 2 limos, drove 2 different ways. This is back when Obama was president. So he either has a clone or I don't think it's a clone. I think that's all nonsense. But I think they have lookalikes of someone's wearing a mask and prosthetics that looks identical. Birthmarks and everything to him. You couldn't tell the difference. And now guys in the firehouse used to talk about that. So now they don't fly in there anymore. But I know, once again, they're deceiving us at every angle. So I don't pay attention.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, 100%. And this stuff is, as like the WWE, there's people that are scripting all this out. These little puppets, and you wear this mask and you do this and you guys are going to do this. I 100% agree with you on that. And it's so silly that we would, like you said, focus on that bullshit and not focus on what is, evolving ourselves spiritually.
Yeah, and I'm not giving up hope. It's not going to happen just yet. Not giving up hope and faith and all that, and keep doing what I'm doing, because eventually you're paving the way for your kids and your kids' kids to go, wow, my dad laid the groundwork when everyone else is doing that crazy stuff, because there's going to be a breaking point eventually. And what side do you want to be on? It's up to you. So, don't worry. If you don't do it this time, you'll come back reincarnated. Try your best if you want, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew. I encourage everybody to check out your social media, your website. We'll make sure we put that all in the show notes and have the links and stuff like that. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you so much.